Page 19, the Bible says, at the top of the page they're introducing you to a new symbol. It's another box. This one looks like a hat. Very similar to the whole rest. This one's called a half rest. It corresponds to a half note. See, a whole rest corresponds to a whole note or a whole measure. A half rest corresponds to a half note. It gets 2 counts, and this piece is 3/4 or 4/4 time. It's going to get 2 counts because a half note will get 2 counts, so a half rest gets 2 counts. You have to be quiet for 2 counts. You play the rest by being quiet. If you look at the first measure in the left hand, they have a quarter rest and then that half rest. It sits above the line. That's the difference between a whole rest and a half rest. Is a half rest is above the line, a whole rest is below the line. And the way I remember it and the way I used to teach it was that a whole is heavier than a half, so a whole hangs below. A half can sit on top because it's lighter. And that's how I remember that, because otherwise they look exactly the same. So you have to be careful on that. So in this part, they're not going to use a whole note there at the beginning because that's not a whole measure. If you see the time signature is 4/4, but if you look at that first measure, there's only 3 counts in it. That's not a whole measure. So you can't use a whole rest there. No, they have to do it this way. They do a quarter rest and a half rest, or they could do 3/4 rests. Either way, doesn't matter, but you can't use a whole rest there. But if you look at the last measure of the piece, it's got 1 beat in it. So here we have an incomplete measure again, a pickup measure, but we're starting on beat 2 because beat 1 is at the end. So an incomplete measure can be any number of beats as long as it's not a whole measure. That's what I'm saying. Now, moving on. The right hand gets the melody. Play the right hand a little louder than the left. And the left hand's getting a little tricky. Let's look at this left hand here. Second measure, or the first full measure, I should say. You're here. The bottom note's moving around. The top note's the same. It's good exercise for the fingers. The last measure, the first line, look at that. So just so you're aware of what's going on here, because yeah, it's getting a little more complicated now. I'd like to try this out with you slowly. We are going to repeat it because there's repeats on there. The MF stands for medium loud, mezzo forte. That's the melody. So keep the left hand soft. Now let's try it out. I'm going to give us 5 counts. That's a full 4 counts because it's in 4/4 time, plus 1 count because we come in on beat 2. Is this getting fun or what? Stick around, it gets better. So here, we're still in this G position. 1, 2, 3, 4, go.